Hey techies, welcome to Elephant Code. If you're new to the channel, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. You're watching a video from the PySpark playlist. So let's begin.
Welcome back. So today we are going to see how we can drop the rows with none or null value in your data. Okay, so you will be having PySpark data frame. Okay, now in those PySpark data frame, if you have any kind of none value in any of the column, we will see how we can drop it. So there's a syntax for dropping also. So it is like na.drop is the function, or you may use drop na function as well. Okay, so both work exactly similar. Okay, so and the syntax is like you'll be having a drop. Okay, now inside the drop parameter you'll be having how. So how you want to drop it, I mean it basically checks depending upon the number of attribute in your data frame. So if you're writing, let's say how equal to any, so if any of the column or attribute is having any value, it will drop that particular row. And if you put all, then it will be checking whether all the attribute of your row from the data frame is having none value or not. If so, then it will drop. But if any of the column is having some value and the rest of the column is having none value, it won't drop in case of how is set to all. Okay, and then threshold is so threshold is nothing but it specify the number which tells that if you have, I mean, let's say if you have threshold is like 2, then a minimum of 2 value need to be and 2 attribute need to have the value present in it. So if there's any row where the number of attribute having none is greater than the threshold, then those row will be considered for dropping. And subset is nothing but where for which attribute you want to see the none value. So you can also specify the subset here. So by default, the subset is being considered as all the attribute of your data frame. Okay, so yeah, so here in this video we will see how we can drop rows with null value in any column, drop rows with null value in all column, and drop rows with null value in specified column. Okay, so these three we are going to see in this video. So let us begin with the practical. So I'm going to use the same code which I had written in the previous video. So you may check the previous video to understand the code which I've written for the explanation of split column. So I'm just picking up this code and just trying to create one more file. I'll name it as drop na.python. Okay, I'm just copy pasting this. So what I can do, I'm having the data frame already created with this set of data. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just create one more method, df get none value rows dropped. Okay, and here I will create the data frame. So I'll just call this method, which will help me to get the data frame created. So this method is actually creating the data frame. So I'm calling this method. So this method will be giving me the data frame. Okay, now since my data frame is already present, so now I can directly apply the drop na method. Okay, so for dropping na, I'll say drop na df.na.drop. Okay, so here the first parameter is how. Okay, how, I'll say that all, you check for any row which is having all the attribute as null and then delete that row. Okay, and then yeah, so here what I will do, I'll just create one more row here. Okay, I'll say this and I'll just give none, none and none. Okay, so I'm giving one row as none, none, none. Now before dropping, I'll just print. Okay, here I'll say before dropping. and print after dropping. Okay, here I'll say df. Okay, and then I'll call this particular method here. Okay, I don't need to pass anything. I'm just printing out before and after. Okay, so what we are trying to do, we are trying to drop the row which is consisting of all the column which are having none value. So those kind of row will get dropped. So here we saw that we have added one row which is having all the column value as none. Okay, so this should be not be appearing in our output, final output. Okay, let us execute the code to see whether we are getting the result. Okay, so we need to do the display df of show, df of show. Look, so here in the original data frame we had the fifth row which consists of all the column as null value, and post we apply the na.drop, we can see that that particular row is already dropped off. Okay, now what we will do, we will say that we want to drop any row which consists of any none value. So even if one column is having none value, so that column will also go off along with the rows which is consisting of all the null value. Okay, so what we can do here, I'm just commenting this out. Okay, and here I'll just put a documentation example of any example of all. Now here we will see example of any. So any column in any row, if it is 0, then that entire row will be dropped off. Okay, so this is what we are trying to do here. So instead of all, I'll just put any. Okay, so yeah, so here you can see the fifth and sixth row was having none value. Okay, so fifth row is having null value in one of the attribute, and sixth row is having none value in all the attributes. So we have applied the technique of any. So any number of attribute which is having none value, so those rows will get discarded. Okay, so after dropping, so the resultant would be this one. Okay, so fifth and sixth rows are dropped off. So you understood the meaning of any and all. Okay, now we will move ahead with the subset. So I'm just copy pasting this example of subset. Okay, now here what I want to do, I want to, let me just add few more data here. 6, 7, say none here as well. Okay. Now here what I will say, I want to drop all those subset where id, I want to drop all those, okay, where I'll start with all, okay, where I will have this ID and name column be none value. So these two column, I mean any row where these two column values are none, those row will get dropped off. Okay, so in our example, if you see, okay, let us execute this code and then we will see from this output. Okay, so any row which is having ID and name, both the columns should be null because here we have kept the technique as all. Okay, so let us execute this. Okay, good. So here you see this one row, only this one row, the seventh row, okay, where the ID and name, both columns are none. Okay, both the columns are none. So here we are saying that all such row where the ID and name column both are none. Okay, so drop those. So the data frame which will get created will be of 1 to 6. Okay, so this is how we can check the subset. Now if I put any here, now what will happen? It will say that check for those row where ID and name, any column out of these two, ID and name, are none. Okay, so and drop those rows. So here in this case, see, there's one row here where the name is null. There's one row here where the name is null. Okay, and there's one row here where the name or ID, any of these are null. Okay, so three rows will get dropped, this one, and this one. Okay, so let us execute and see. Great. So here if you see the third number of row, sixth number of row, and seventh number of rows are dropped off. Okay, so if I just extend it, here you can see the third number, it was dropped because any of these two attribute, ID and name, if it is null, then that row will get dropped off. Okay, so this is dropped. Similarly, here if you see this row, any of these two attribute, if having null, that row will get dropped off. So this is also dropped off from the output. Similarly, for the last row also, any of these two attribute value is null, then it will get dropped off. So both are null. So this is also qualified to drop. Okay, so now the resultant is this one. Okay. Okay, now the last part is threshold. Is equal to 2. Okay, so here I will just say all. So here what I'm saying, that you delete all those row where there are more none than having two I mean a minimum of two attributes should have value. If there's any record which is having more than two attribute having none value, that need to be get dropped off. So here if you see, this is one of the row which is having more than two. Okay, because only one attribute is having value, it is saying that minimum of two attribute should have the value. Okay, so here there's only one, so this will also get dropped off, this is also getting dropped off. but this will stay like that. Why? Because it is having 5 column are having value, and the syntax is saying that you should have minimum of 2 attribute having the value, okay, having one or other value. So you need to keep those a minimum of 2. Whereas I mean, for these two we saw that um for this we saw that we have only one attribute which is having value. For rest all it is having null, so this will get dropped off. Whereas this should not get dropped off because it is having 1 2 3 column having value, none, having values. Okay, so get, okay, see, look. So only this column will get this, so particularly this so gets deleted. Why? Because threshold was 2. So it was expecting only at least 2 column having value. Okay. Whereas in this so we don't have 2 column where it has values. Okay. So it is like only one column which has this value. So this get drops up and rest all are intact. Okay. Rest all are intact. Okay, so this is how you can implement all various kind of drops, okay, from in your data frame. I hope you must have understood this concept. Now it is time to check the quiz.
Elfin quiz of the day. How can you filter rows with null values on multiple columns in a PySpark data frame? Option A, applying the drop na function with a list of columns. Option B, using the isNull method with each column separately. Option C, utilizing the filter function with a condition on each column. Or option D, implementing the exclude nulls method with a list of columns. Please mention your answer in the comment section below. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe Elfin Code for future updates.